Hello, everyone. Tonight we begin our descent into the scorching heart of ancient Egypt. Imagine, outside your window, the streetlights cast gold against the pavement. Maybe there's a dog barking faintly in the distance, or the hum of your air conditioner steady in the background. Now trade all that for a reed hut, a straw mat, and a sun that doesn't just rise, it ambushes you. Tonight, we'll follow a girl named Binti, 17 years old, as she tries to survive just one day in this land of heat, gods, and unrelenting discomfort. Fair warning, it might be harder to climb out of this world than you think. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I'm doing here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a small fan for that gentle background hum, and let's begin tonight's journey together. The sun doesn't just rise in ancient Egypt, it kicks the door down. Before Binti even opens her eyes, light is already blasting through her reed-woven roof like an angry god with no chill. Her mat, once sort of dry straw, is now damp with sweat. There is no breeze, no curtain, no shade. Just linen sheets that offer all the protection of a polite suggestion. She sits up slowly, every movement creaking like a poorly built chariot. Beside her, her younger brother Horam, 11 years old and somehow still asleep, has managed to cocoon himself under a thin cloth that smells like river mud and yesterday's onions. It's not just hot, it's aggressively hot. The kind of heat that feels like it wants something from you, mainly your will to live. The family hut is made of sun-baked mud bricks that trap heat like it's a family heirloom. Every surface radiates warmth, including the floor, which is technically just compacted dirt, but still manages to be warmer than a guilty conscience. The walls don't insulate, they incubate. And the ceiling, let's just say it offers about as much coverage as a disgraced fig leaf. She steps outside into the courtyard and immediately regrets it. The air is thick, like it's been ladled out of a boiling pot. Flies hover around lazily, already drunk on the collective body odor of the village. The Nile shimmers in the distance, sacred and swampy, a ribbon of life that smells faintly of fish death and divine indifference. Her father, Nefer, is already up, hunched over a water jar like he's trying to decide if today is worth the back pain. At 42, he walks with the gait of someone who has fought the sun every single day since puberty and lost every time. He doesn't say good morning because there is no good in this morning, just heat and obligation. The plan for today, like every day, is to survive until nightfall. But first, water. And that means heading to the Nile with clay jars and cautious optimism. Binti and her mother, a quiet woman named Iseri, whose patience is the stuff of local legend, begin their short pilgrimage to the riverbank. The walk is short but feels eternal. Each step kicks up dust. Each breath tastes like hot bread and sandal leather. The path to the Nile is lined with thorny bushes, sun-cracked stones, and the occasional lizard who looks more hydrated than you. At the river, it gets worse. The shoreline is buzzing with flies, frogs, and things that move like they shouldn't. The water itself is sacred, yes, but it also smells like a fish market got into a bar fight with the swamp. People are already washing clothes, themselves, their goats, and their sins in this muddy miracle. Binti kneels and begins filling the jars. Her arms ache before the second jar is even half full. On the way back, she balances a water jar on her head like she's done 1,000 times before. But today it's heavier, or maybe she's just more tired. It's hard to tell the difference anymore. Back at home, breakfast is waiting. And by waiting, we mean it exists, sort of. A coarse loaf of bread, dense enough to qualify as a weapon, sits on a clay plate. It's made from emmer wheat, or maybe barley, and baked in a communal oven that shares space with neighborhood rats. It's chewy in the way dried figs are chewy if you forget them in the sun for 6 hours. Next to it is beer, not the kind you'd want. This isn't golden, bubbly refreshment. It's thick, lukewarm, and has the consistency of regret. Basically, liquid bread. Everyone drinks it, including the kids, because it's safer than Nile water, which is a soup of silt, spirit offerings, and the occasional crocodile. Binti eats in silence, chews the bread, swallows the beer, tries not to think too hard about what part of the bread crunches and why. Her brother Horam is still half asleep, sipping from his mug like it's hot chocolate. It isn't. This is the morning in ancient Egypt. It's loud without noise, hot without fire, and alive without mercy. Binti knows the worst part is yet to come, because once the sun climbs higher, it's time to work. And in Egypt, work isn't just physical, it's spiritual. It's existential. It's how you prove to the gods that you're worth keeping around another day. But for now, she sits in the semi-shade of their hut and watches the dust dance in the air. Somewhere out there, Ra rides his solar boat across the sky, blessing the kingdom with his gaze. Down here, Binti just wishes he'd blink. There is no such thing as a relaxed morning in ancient Egypt. Not for Binti. Not for anyone without a temple position or royal blood. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the stakes of the day begin to bake. Binti's chores start with the family hearth, which in reality is a small pit in the courtyard lined with blackened stones and the ghosts of yesterday's firewood. She grabs a handful of dry reeds and coaxing embers, prays briefly to any god who specializes in not letting your breakfast go uncooked, and manages to stir a reluctant flame to life. Today's first job, bake more bread, not the fluffy kind. This is emmer wheat brick bread built with just enough crunch to chip a tooth and flavor that hovers somewhere between smoky nostalgia and taste of dust. The family's grinding stone sits nearby, a slab of basalt worn smooth by years of circular suffering. She pours in grain, sprinkles a little water, and starts grinding. It's meditative, in the same way pushing a boulder uphill is meditative. Her mother, Iseri, appears with a woven basket and a look that says, "We're late." Laundry day, which in ancient Egypt means drag everything to the Nile and hope the crocodiles aren't feeling curious. The family's linens aren't many, but they are dusty, stained, and infused with the scent of eternal perspiration. Binti balances the laundry on her hip, the sun already finding new crevices on her neck to warm. Horam tags along, more out of boredom than helpfulness, clutching a tiny slingshot he swears is for birds, though he's never hit one in his life. Back at the Nile, it's chaos, as usual. A group of women are already there, chatting loudly over the sound of slapping wet cloth against river rocks. Children run shrieking between baskets. Dogs bark at ibis birds, and somewhere upstream, someone is definitely emptying a chamber pot into sacred waters. This is what passes for hygiene. Binti kneels beside a smooth stone, dips the first tunic, and begins the rhythmic thwack-thwack of washing. Sand and sediment fly off in small bursts. Horam tosses pebbles nearby, scaring a frog that jumps directly into an unsuspecting woman's washing. The scream she lets out is enough to make nearby ibis reconsider their beach plans. There's no soap. Instead, there's sand and elbow grease. Sand to scrub, sun to dry, and prayers to keep the cloth from tearing. Sometimes they add natron. that magical ancient mix of salts that serves as a detergent, deodorant, and general purpose miracle. Binti watches her fingers turn red from scrubbing, one tunic down, seven to go. By midday, the heat becomes unbearable. The clothes are half dry by the time they return, draped over sticks like surrender flags. Back home, lunch is a repeat of breakfast, only warmer from being carried under the sun. More bread, more beer, maybe an onion if the gods are smiling. Nefer, her father, is home just long enough to eat in silence. He speaks only when necessary, and today it is necessary. The crops are struggling. Again, he saw the southern plots yellowing, leaves curling like they're ashamed to live. If the Nile doesn't flood well this year, there won't be enough grain to pay taxes, much less survive the winter. Taxes are not optional. A scribe came last week to measure their grain bins with a stick that looked far too judgmental. The gods may forgive, but the state does not. As the family eats, a neighbor stops by, panting and covered in dust. She brings news. The workers at the royal tomb site are being pushed harder than ever. More stones to haul, more walls to decorate. Someone collapsed last night and didn't get back up. They say it was the heat, but whispers talk of a curse. No one builds the pharaoh's tomb without consequence. Binti listens, chewing slowly, eyes wide. Her cousin Ketu works there. He's strong, quick with a chisel, and not above breaking rules when needed. But curses, that's another matter. You don't joke about tomb curses, not here. After the visitor leaves, Binti helps clean up. Dishes are simple, clay bowls wiped with old cloth and rinsed with the same precious water they fetched at dawn. Every drop counts. Water isn't just life here, it's currency, blessing, burden. The afternoon is brutally hot. Even the lizards give up. Binti takes a break in the shade of their hut, but shade in ancient Egypt is a slippery concept. It's more like less sunlight per square inch, and it still feels like sitting inside a brick oven that wants to have a conversation. In the distance, the temple bells ring. A priest is making offerings to Ra, asking for mercy, or maybe just a breeze. Binti wonders if Ra ever listens. If the gods hear the same prayers every day, do they eventually tune them out? Evening will bring cooler air, slightly less biting insects, and more work. For now, Binti rests, sweat beading on her forehead like dew on a statue. Tomorrow she'll rise before the sun again. But today she's made it to noon, which in ancient Egypt is its own kind of miracle. The Nile is calm tonight, but calm doesn't mean clean. As the sun slides toward the horizon, casting gold across the water, Binti returns for one last errand, evening water collection. The clay jars are lighter this time, less water, more hope the heat won't crack them. She walks with Horam, whose feet are caked in dust and pride. He swears he saw a crocodile earlier. She swears he saw a log. At the riverbank, the light has softened. The air is less aggressive. But the water? Still questionable. They fill the jars as fast as possible. Binti doesn't like being here after dark. That's when the river spirits stir, or so her grandmother used to say. Spirits with fish eyes and voices that echo like underwater whispers. On their way back, a man stumbles past them. A laborer, judging by his clothes or what's left of them. His hands are wrapped in linen, red seeping through. He doesn't speak, just nods once, eyes empty as tomb walls. Horam stares. Binti pulls him along. They reach home as the last of the sun dips below the dunes. The sky turns purple, then ink. Nefer lights the house torch, a slow, smoldering flame that smells like burning memories. Dinner is the same as lunch, which was the same as breakfast. Give or take a different fly in the bowl. Bread. Beer. A slice of onion so strong it could knock a donkey sideways. Tonight, there's a visitor, Uncle Sinishret. Not a real uncle, but every adult male over 40 in the village ends up an uncle by default. He's wiry, loud, and smells like fermented linen. He brings news from the temple. The priests say the river is too low this year. Not dangerously low yet, but it's whispering warnings. The kind of whisper that sounds like cracked earth and empty bellies. Nefer listens in silence, his jaw clenched like stone. Iseri, meanwhile, shifts slightly, the way people do when bad news tries to find a place to sit. Senusret goes on. They say the pharaoh's astrologers are watching the stars, looking for omens or excuses. You know how it is. Everyone does. When the Nile fails, people suffer. When people suffer, the gods are blamed, and when that doesn't work, the blame rolls downhill until it finds someone soft enough to crush. After he leaves, Nefer speaks. We'll have to dig deeper irrigation trenches tomorrow. No one protests, not because they agree. Because what's the alternative? That night, the wind picks up. It howls low, dragging dust across the village like a slow exhale. Binti lies on her mat, arms behind her head, staring at the reed ceiling. The stars peek through gaps in the roof. She wonders what it's like to be one of them. Distant, untouched, unbothered. Horem rolls over beside her. Do you think Ketu is okay? She doesn't answer right away. He's smart, she finally says. He knows how to stay out of trouble, but even as she says it, she remembers the laborer's hands, the silence in his eyes, the way he moved like someone already halfway into the afterlife. Sleep comes slowly, dreams come slower, and when they do, they smell like dust and river rot. At dawn, they rise again. No one needs to be told. The village moves by habit, not instruction. Before the sun can sting, the family is already at work. Nefer and Horem head to the fields. Izeri tends the fire. Binti grabs a worn basket and joins a group of girls heading toward the reeds. Their task, gather papyrus. Not for writing. Only scribes and the dead get paper. No, this is for weaving mats, making baskets, maybe a roof patch if the birds don't get to it first. The papyrus beds are dense, green, alive with bugs and mystery sounds. The water is shallow, warm, and smells faintly of yesterday's sins. They wade in, skirts hitched, knives in hand. Binti works methodically. Cut, bundle, tie. Cut, bundle, tie. She likes the rhythm. It doesn't ask questions. Beside her, a girl named Satra hums a tune that might be a prayer or just something she made up. Another girl swats a fly and mutters about how the gods should have made mosquitoes easier to kill. They laugh, a little, quietly, because joy, like water, is carefully rationed. By midday, they return with bundles slung across their backs like offerings. The sun is directly overhead now, scorching and smug. Binti's feet are blistered, her arms streaked with mud and pride, and the Nile, it just keeps flowing, slow, silent, watching. Because in Egypt, the river sees everything, and it remembers. The afternoon drags on, heavy with dust and expectation. Binti sits in the shade beside the hut, weaving reeds into a mat. Her fingers move automatically, but her thoughts drift toward Ketu, her cousin, her almost brother. He left months ago to work on the pharaoh's tomb, a job said to bring honor and hernias. No one's heard from him in weeks. Every so often, a rumor blows in from someone's uncle's friend's neighbor, who swears Ketu was seen hauling stones near the Valley of the Kings. Or maybe he was the one who fainted under the sun last week. Or maybe he made a joke about a scribe's sandals and was never seen again. Hard to say. Binti doesn't trust rumors, but silence is worse. Nefer returns from the fields, face streaked with sweat and disappointment. The irrigation trenches yielded little. The earth is cracking. The weeds are winning, and the gods seem indifferent. He sits without speaking, drinks water like it's made of gold, and stares at nothing. Iseri brings a small clay pot to the table. Dinner, if you can call it that. Lentil mash and garlic paste served on bread that doubles as a chewable cutting board. Horam grumbles but eats. Binti chews quietly. No one has energy to talk. After the meal, Nefer begins preparing a small offering. A handful of grain, an onion of fat, and a carved wooden figure of Happy, the god of the Nile, giver of floods, protector of irrigation enthusiasts. He places them beside a flickering oil lamp and murmurs something halfway between a prayer and a complaint. Binti watches him, unsure if it helps, but it feels better than doing nothing. That night, the village is restless. Dogs bark at shadows. The wind carries strange scents. In the distance, temple drums echo faintly. A ceremony, maybe, or an emergency. No one knows. No one asks. Sleep is harder than usual. Binti tosses on her mat, replaying memories of Ketu. His laugh, his stubborn grin, the time he claimed he could out-paddle a crocodile and nearly got bitten in the process. He was always reckless, but not stupid. At least, not that stupid. She finally drifts off, only to wake a few hours later to whispering. Outside the hut, male voices. Urgent. Nefer is already up, peering through the cracks. He signals Binti to stay inside. But of course, she doesn't. Outside, two men stand with torches and trouble etched into their faces. One of them carries a wrapped bundle. It takes Binti a moment to realize it's a body. Ketu. He's not dead, but he's not far. His arm is broken, his back raw with lashes, his face half swollen and unrecognizable. They say he spoke up, questioned a foreman, asked why the stone quota was doubled when the sun was unforgiving and the food had been cut. He was told to be quiet. He wasn't. So they made an example of him. The men leave after explaining just enough to crush the air out of the night. Iseri rushes to clean Ketu's wounds. Binti holds his hand, tries not to cry. He opens his eyes just once and says, "Still here," and that's all he says. In the following days, the household is subdued. Ketu doesn't speak much. He winces when he moves, sleeps most of the time, eats what little he can. Nefer is angry, but it simmers under the surface. He sharpens tools with more force than necessary, talks less, prays more. Iseri spends her time tending to Ketu, humming soft songs from her own childhood. Horam sits nearby, quieter than usual, carving shapes into dried mud with a stick. Binti returns to her chores, papyrus bundles, water fetching, bread baking, but everything feels heavier. The village notices. Some offer quiet sympathy, others avoid eye contact. Everyone understands, but no one wants to be the next example. At sunset one evening, Ketu manages to sit up. His voice is hoarse but steady. "I want to go back." Everyone freezes. "Not to the tomb," he adds, "to the fields, to help, to work, just not there, not again." Nefer nods once, slowly. It's not permission, it's recognition. Because in ancient Egypt, even when your body breaks, the work never does. That night, Binti walks to the edge of the village, looks out toward the desert. The stars are clearer here, brighter. Cold against the heat of the day, she thinks of Ketu, of the tombs, of the endless cycle of labor, injury, silence, repeat. And then she whispers something not meant for the gods, just for herself, still here. The wind picks it up, carries it across the sand toward the Nile, toward tomorrow. Morning comes quietly. No fanfare, just a shift in light and the persistent smell of smoke from last night's lamp. Binti wakes before the others, not because she wants to, but because her body no longer trusts the idea of rest. She slips outside, barefoot on the dirt floor that's already warming with the sun's early breath. The village is still. A dog stretches. A rooster considers crowing, then decides it's too early. Sensible. She walks toward the river, alone this time. The clay jar is lighter when it's empty, heavier when your head is full. The Nile is quiet. Mist hugs the surface. A crocodile watches from a distance, eyes just above the water, ancient and unimpressed. Binti nods at it, not out of fear, out of respect. In Egypt, even the animals are part deity. She fills the jar, carefully avoiding the slick rocks near the edge. The water smells better at dawn, or maybe everything does. Back home, the day begins its repetition. Bread, beer, sweat. Horam is more animated today, trying to impress Ketu with a carved slingshot that barely holds together. Ketu smiles, then grimaces. Healing is slow. Nefer takes the boys to the fields. Aseri stays behind, grinding grain and humming. Binti heads to the market. The village market isn't what modern minds imagine. No polished stalls or jingling coins, just woven mats laid on the ground, baskets of dates, onions, dried fish, and people shouting prices like they're summoning spirits. The air is a blend of spice, sweat, and heated gossip. Binti barters with a woman for onions, offers a strip of woven papyrus in return. The woman squints, considers, then nods. Trade accepted. No scales, no receipts, just memory and reputation. She lingers a moment to listen. The talk today is about the temple, about a new decree. The priests have declared that the next flood will be the most important in a generation, that sacrifices should be made. Offerings, not just to Hapi, but to Ra, to Osiris, even to Anubis. Cover all bases, just in case. One man jokes that if they sacrifice anything else, they'll have to offer themselves. No one laughs, not really. On the way back, Binti stops at the edge of a barley field. It's not theirs, belongs to a neighbor, but the plants look healthy, taller, greener. Jealousy in Egypt comes in shades of green. By midday, the heat returns with a vengeance, the kind that flattens ambition and sours your thoughts. Binti works in the shade, patching mats and checking on the fermenting mash for tomorrow's beer. It's bubbling just enough to be dangerous. Then, drums, distant but steady. Temple drums mean only a few things: a festival, a death, or a message. The village gathers slowly. No one wants to admit curiosity, but they all arrive. A priest, tall and thin as a reed, stands at the edge of the square. He wears white linen and the confidence of someone who never carries water jars. His voice is practiced, loud but soothing. He speaks of blessings, of the river's will, of divine plans. Then comes the announcement. A communal offering will be made next week. Each family must contribute. Grain, oil, wine, something, anything. The gods are restless. The pharaoh is watching. The river listens. Afterward, the crowd disperses like smoke. No one speaks much. What is there to say? Give what you can. Hope it's enough. Back at home, Nefer counts their grain silently. Izeri adds a small jar of oil to the corner. Horm offers his carved toy slingshot. Ketu watches, says nothing. That night, Binti lies awake again. The stars are out, the wind is dry. She wonders what it would feel like to float on the Nile, not on a raft or in a jar, but just float. Light as the feather of Ma'at, unburdened. She falls asleep thinking of floods, not the kind that destroy, the kind that cleanse. The sun rises again like it always does, on time, unapologetic, and already too hot. Today is the day of offerings. The village hums with tense energy. Even the goats seem quieter. Binti helps the Seri pack their contributions. A bundle of dried onions, a jar of barley, and a strip of linen dyed in faded indigo. Not much, but enough to be noticed, enough to be remembered, they hope, by both priest and god. They walk together to the temple grounds. which is really just a leveled clearing marked with stones and the presence of judgment. Other families are already there, placing their offerings in neat piles under the stern gaze of the attending priests. One by one, goods are weighed, examined, nodded at. A man ahead of them argues that his wine isn't sour, just strong. The priest smells it, doesn't flinch, and lets it pass, just barely. When it's their turn, Izeri steps forward, eyes down, posture respectful. The priest doesn't speak, but inspects the goods. His assistant takes notes with a reed stylus on a clay tablet. Binti watches his hands. They're smooth, no calluses, not like her father's, not like hers. The priest gives a brief nod, accepted. They step aside. After all the offerings are presented, the ceremony begins. A chant, a torch lit. Smoke rises from a central fire pit where symbolic items, bread, incense, oil are fed to flame. Not the actual offerings, of course, those are kept. Redistributed. The gods get the smell, the temple gets the rest. Binti listens to the chant, words older than pyramids, promises older than cities. She tries to feel reverence, but mostly she feels sweat sliding down her spine. When it's over, the crowd disperses like birds startled from a tree. Quiet, quick, no one wants to linger in holy heat. Back home, things return to normal, or what passes for it. Nefer is in the fields again. Ketu joins him, moving slowly but steadily. His bruises fade, but the anger doesn't. He doesn't talk about what happened, but he sharpens tools more than necessary. Binti tends the home, prepares the fire, kneads the dough, watches the horizon. The air feels heavier today. Not hotter, just heavier, like something's coming. And it does. By late afternoon, a dust storm appears. At first, it's just a shimmer, a ripple in the air. Then it's a line, then a wall, then it's everywhere. The sky turns orange, then brown, then disappears. Everyone scrambles, doors shut, windows covered. Binti and Iseri drag mats across the doorway, press cloth to the cracks. Horam clutches a doll made of bundled straw and doesn't speak. Outside, the world howls. Sand gets in everything. Your eyes, your teeth, your prayers. It lasts less than an hour, but it feels like a lifetime. When it ends, the silence is louder than the wind. They step outside. The village is coated in dust, like the gods tried to erase it and got bored halfway. Neighbors emerge, coughing, blinking, cursing softly. No one's dead. That's the good news. The bad news, the fields are shredded. Young shoots snapped, trenches filled, tools buried. It's like the earth has been salted by a moody sky. Nefer doesn't speak for a long time. Then he says simply, "We start again." Because that's what you do. That night, the stars return, reluctantly. The wind is gone, the dust settles, Binti lies awake, again, but not from fear, from resolve. Because tomorrow, they start again. The dust doesn't just settle, it clings. Days after the storm, it still coats every surface. The walls, the bread, even the hope in people's eyes. It gets into food, into bedding, and into thoughts. The air tastes like memory and sand. Binti wakes early, her face half pressed into a mat that now feels like a gravel road. Her mouth is dry, her hair full of grit, and her mood sets somewhere between resigned and furious. She doesn't say anything. Neither does anyone else. The silence is heavy and communal. Outside, the village looks pale, like the gods forgot to color it in. Binti grabs a reed broom and starts sweeping the courtyard, but it's like trying to empty the Nile with a spoon. Every sweep kicks up more dust than it removes. Nefer joins her a moment later. He doesn't speak either, just nods and starts clearing a collapsed stretch of the fence. Horam wanders out, rubbing his eyes and dragging his lucky pebbles in a tied cloth behind him. He sneezes twice, then sits in the shade and draws lines in the dirt with a stick. By midday, the heat is back to its usual tyranny. The sky is a white sheet. Even the lizards look like they're reconsidering life choices. Binti heads to the Nile to fetch water. On the way, she meets Satra and two other girls, all moving slow, as if time itself had turned sticky. "You hear about Natia's roof?" Satra asks. "Flew off?" Binti guesses. "No, sank." They laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it helps. At the river, the water is lower than before. The crocodiles don't even pretend to hide. One floats nearby, bored and menacing. Binti fills her jar quickly. The banks are soft, slippery. One wrong step and it's a bath with teeth. On the way home, the girls share bits of gossip. A scribe tripped on his own scroll in the next village. A priest was seen slipping a fig into his sleeve at the offering table. Nothing important, everything necessary. Back home, Ketu is under the lean-to, trying to repair a cracked hoe. He's seated cross-legged, a roll of linen tied around one hand, the other adjusting a worn blade against the handle. "Storm got us good," he says. "Better than getting got by the tomb foreman," Binti replies. He grins. It pulls at a healing bruise. Later, in the field, Nefer directs the cleanup. They're salvaging what they can. Stones, tools, anything that wasn't buried or blown halfway to Memphis. Ketu joins him. Slowly, carefully. His steps are measured, like each one is a conversation with his bones. Horem tries to help by moving bundles of palm leaves. He mostly succeeds in moving them onto his own feet. By sunset, the field looks slightly less cursed. Not good, but not lost. That night, the village holds a meeting. Not an official one, just people gathering where the shade used to be. They sit on mats, lean against walls, and trade fear like it's currency. Someone's goat is missing. Probably eaten. Someone else found a fish with two heads. Possibly a warning. Probably just weird. Nedia, ancient and sharp as ever, mutters about the wind. "Last time it came from the east, the Nile dried up, and my husband forgot our anniversary. Neither of those went well." A younger man just back from the Delta says he saw scribes mapping new territory. That usually means taxes or something worse. Nefer listens without speaking. He carves a line into the dirt with a stick. Long, straight, deep. Back at home, the fire is low. Iseri brews something pungent and suspicious in a clay pot. Binti suspects it's for medicine or possibly to scare demons away. Horem plays with his pebbles, arranging them in a circle. "I think this one's lucky now," he says, holding up a smooth black stone. "That one was lucky last week." "Yeah, but now it's more lucky." They eat what little is left, bread softened with water and a bit of date syrup, a miracle by ancient standards. Nefer says, "We need more grain. We need a miracle," Iseri replies. "Same thing." "I'll fish tomorrow," Ketu offers. "I'll come," Binti adds. "No," Nefer says. "You stay, help here." She doesn't argue, but she doesn't like it. That night, Binti steps outside. The stars are sharp again. The air still smells like dust, but less angry. She looks up. "Ra, for strength," she whispers. "Happy, for water. Ma'at, for balance." Then, softer, Ketu, for tomorrow. She goes to bed with sand in her hair, smoke in her lungs, and a tiny ember of hope under her ribs. Still here, still going, still Egypt. Dawn creeps in cautiously, soft as linen. After the storm, every sunrise feels borrowed. Today, Ketu goes to fish. He leaves before the others stir, a net made of tired reeds slung over his back, a scrap of salted bait wrapped in palm leaf tucked in his pouch. He doesn't say goodbye. He doesn't need to. Binti lies awake, listening for the sound of his steps fading into sand. The mat beneath her is still gritty, still smells of sweat and survival. She rolls onto her side, blinks at the reed roof above, and waits for the house to breathe. Iseri is the first up. as always. She moves like the day is a negotiation, slow, measured, with heavy silences between each action. She lights the morning fire and boils water in a blackened clay pot. Binti isn't sure if it's for tea, for cleaning, or for scaring away yesterday's ghosts. Boiling, after all, has range. Horam grumbles awake shortly after. He clutches his cloth pouch of lucky stones to his chest like it owes him something. Still convinced one of them is a talisman, still naming them things like Rod Jr. and Fishbane. Nefer doesn't say much during breakfast. He dips his bread in lentil mash, eats slowly, eyes somewhere in the middle distance, where responsibility lives. Then the visitor arrives. He looks like a scroll learned to walk. Thin, dry, covered in writing. A royal scribe. Never a good sign. He speaks crisply, with the tone of someone who believes his sandals are more important than your gods. By order of His Majesty, he begins, the labor quotas have changed, increased. He lists assignments like he's auctioning misery, harvest work, construction, stone hauling, canal digging. Families will be assigned roles based on need, his need, not theirs. The villagers listen because it's the only safe thing to do. Even the goats seem offended. Nefer volunteers to draw the token for their family. He returns, face unreadable, holding a clay shard with one word scratched on it, transport. Not the worst, not tomb labor, but still bad. I'll go, Ketu says when he returns, fish in hand, clothes soaked, smile barely hanging on. Everyone freezes. You just got back, Binti says. You can't even lift a full bucket. Then I'll lift half. Nefer looks at him long and hard. You sure? Ketu nods. Once, slowly, like he's agreeing with a punishment he gave himself. Preparations are quick, a bag of dried dates, a skin of water, a half-bent knife, and a knotted strip of linen for sun cover. Nefer adds a tiny scarab amulet to the mix. For luck, he says. If the gods still sell it, Ketu replies. Before dawn the next day, he joins a small group of other drawn men, farmers, laborers, and one very angry potter, walking north toward the construction site. Binti watches from the edge of the field until they're eaten by the distance. The day after feels like chewing dry bread. No news, no letters, just work. Binti grinds grain, hauls water, weaves baskets. She fixes a cracked pot for a neighbor who pays her with a scoop of goat curds and a story about a crocodile who understands human speech. Not useful, but oddly comforting. At midday, she stops by the Nile. Satra is there too, knee-deep in reeds, hunting papyrus stalks like they owe her rent. He'll be fine, Satra says without looking up. You always say that, because it has to be true. They walk home together, passing a family laying stones for a new grain bin. Half the village is building things they might not live to use. Back home, Nefer stares at the field. Not doing, just staring. We plant again tomorrow, he finally says. Iseri nods. We always plant. That night, around the fire, Horam tries to juggle pebbles. He drops two, eats a third by accident, and declares himself the champion anyway. Binti smiles, then she doesn't. The next morning, a runner arrives, young, dusty, breathing like he lost a race with the wind. Message for Nefer's house. It's a letter, wrapped in fish skin. Ketu's writing, crooked but unmistakable. Still alive, smells worse, new boss has a laugh like a dying goat, more later. The family laughs harder than they should. It doesn't fix anything, but it helps, and in Egypt, help comes in strange packages. Dusty scribes, broken tools, and the scribbled defiance of a boy who refuses to disappear. Morning arrives again, hot and blunt. There is no ceremony, no grace, just heat and obligation. The village wakes slowly like it doesn't want to, and honestly, who could blame it? Today is the day of the drawing. The scribe sets up his post near the edge of the market square. A canopy of stretched linen, a clay jar of tokens, and an expression that says he's already bored. Each family must send someone. Each token holds a fate. No questions, no complaints. Not unless you want to be assigned extra. Nefer walks up to draw, quiet, resolute. He returns home carrying a shard of clay. Scratched into it, a single word, transport. Not the worst assignment, not tomb work, not canal dredging, but still brutal. I'll go, Ketu says again, just like before. This time there's no hesitation, just tired nods. He packs quickly, the same bundle from last time, dates, water, scarab amulet. Binti sneaks in a strip of dried fig. Horam gives him one of his lucky pebbles. It's heart-shaped, sort of. Before dawn, he joins a small group at the edge of the village. Men and boys, some already lined with sunburn. One woman with arms like tree roots. They nod to each other. No words. No point. They walk north. Binti watches until they disappear into the horizon's haze. Back home, life folds into itself. Izeri kneads dough with a silence that threatens to crack. Nefer walks the perimeter of the fields, calculating something in his head he never says out loud. Horam carves pictures into clay with a stick, a bird, a fish, maybe a sun with too many rays. Binti takes over water duty. The Nile is quieter than usual. Even the crocodiles look tired. She fills the jar and sits on a flat rock, waiting for the weight to justify the effort of standing again. Satra finds her there. He okay? He said he was. Then he is. Faith in ancient Egypt is less about belief and more about repetition. On the way back, they pass a funeral. Simple. Wrapped body, 2 men carrying, 3 women mourning. The priest murmurs blessings. Binti watches the procession. She doesn't know the name, but the shape of grief is familiar. At home, the letter arrives. A boy, barefoot, dust-covered, and proud of his messenger status, hands Nefer a tightly wrapped scroll. It's from Ketu. Of course it is. Still alive, new sandals, blisters included. Boss is worse than last one, but sings off-key so it's bearable. Got food, real food. And as always, still here. That last line becomes a litany, a reminder, a promise with a pulse. The next day, the sky turns gray. Not with clouds, but with dust. Another storm? Maybe. Or just a tantrum from the wind. Nefer ties down everything that could fly. Horam sits under the table. Izeri sprinkles water across the courtyard floor to keep the dust down. Binti closes every jar with double cloth. But the storm never comes, just the threat. They wake the next morning to a new decree. The priest, flanked by 2 guards and a camel that looks embarrassed to be there, announces an extra collection: grain, goods, or labor. Payment for the protection of the gods, for the priests, for the palace. You already took from us, someone mutters. Then give again, the priest says. Or give someone. The implication is clear. Don't donate, donate a family member. The crowd disperses like smoke, everyone thinking the same thing but not daring to say it. At dinner, the family is silent. The bread is hard, the beer thin, the options fewer. I'll go, Binti says. You're not old enough, Nefer replies. Then lie. He looks at her, at the shoulders no longer small, at the hands now calloused, at the eyes that stopped asking for permission a long time ago. He doesn't say yes. He doesn't say no. Later that night, another letter arrives. Ketu's handwriting is messier, smudged. Tired, but fine. Lifted more than I should, might get a bonus or a limp. Either way, still worth it. And below that, still here. Binti traces the words with her thumb, doesn't smile, doesn't cry. She just says it back. Still here. Because in ancient Egypt, that counts as a victory. The first letter comes 5 days after Ketu leaves. It arrives at sunset, wrapped in a strip of palm leaf and delivered by a traveling trader with sandals held together by divine will. Some boy with a limp gave me this, he says, then keeps walking. Binti unwraps it slowly, reverently. The handwriting is rough but familiar. Still alive, smells worse, will write more. It becomes the most valuable object in the house. They pass it around like a sacred relic. Nefer reads it 3 times. Iseri presses it to her chest. Horem tries to trade it for a date and a half-eaten fig. Declined. That night, the house feels lighter, not cheerful, but less like it's about to collapse. The next day, they get back to work. The fields need tending. The tools need sharpening. The world, after all, is indifferent to your emotional state. Binti weaves mats until her fingers cramp. Iseri scrubs clay jars with sand. Horem organizes his rock collection by size, then by color, then by potential for magic. At midday, Nefer goes to check the irrigation trenches. He returns covered in mud and silent. Not a good sign. Still clogged? Binti asks. He just nods. Later, she visits the market to trade a reed basket. She comes back with a lump of goat cheese and a story about a dog that barked at a statue for 3 days until it fell over. The statue, not the dog. They eat simply that night. Flatbread, mashed garlic, something pretending to be stew. Horem draws a crocodile in the dirt with a stick. That's you, he tells Binti. Why? Because you bite. She doesn't deny it. The next morning, there's another letter, carried by a different boy, younger and more terrified of eye contact. This one is longer. Found a good spot by the river. Works hard. Boss is worse. But I get food. Real food. One guy fainted and got dragged away. Still better than the tomb. And at the bottom, still here. That phrase settles into Binti's bones like warmth. She whispers it under her breath, lets it echo, still here. But peace is temporary. 2 days later, a priest arrives. He wears white linen and a face that says he enjoys telling people bad news. 2 guards flank him, their spears not raised but not relaxed either. By decree of the temple, he announces, due to the insufficient flood and rising need for offerings, each household must provide additional goods. Grain, oil, or labor. He doesn't wait for applause as Zeri steps forward. We already gave. Then give again, he replies, or give someone. And just like that, the threat hangs in the air like smoke. Not spoken outright, but understood. The family gathers after he leaves. No one speaks at first. Finally, Nefer says, we don't have enough grain. I'll go, Binti says. You're not old enough. Then say I am. He looks at her, and for the first time, she sees hesitation in his face. Not because he doubts her, but because he doesn't want to agree with the world. Iseri starts to object, then stops. She's known this moment was coming. Maybe not today, but soon. Just a few days, Binti adds. That's what Ketu said, Nefer mutters. That night, no one sleeps well. The air feels tight. The moon hides behind clouds. Even the goats are quiet. In the middle of the night, Binti wakes and finds Iseri adding oil to a jar. For the priest, she says, one more bribe. Binti nods, but they both know it won't be enough. The next morning, another letter, this time dirtier. Smudged, folded twice. Still alive. Lifted too much, got yelled at. Food's better, company worse. Might come home if I'm lucky, might stay if I'm not. Still here, that phrase again, a battle cry disguised as a footnote. Binti reads it 3 times, then puts it in the pouch around her neck. Later at the river, Satra asks if she's really going to volunteer. Looks like it. Think they'll let you? Does it matter? Satra doesn't answer, just hands her a dried fig and half a smile. Back home, Binti sharpens a small knife, not for fighting, for work, for readiness. Nefer watches her from the doorway, says nothing, because in ancient Egypt, readiness is permission. That night, Binti sits under the stars, tracing constellations with her finger. She whispers the names: Ra for strength, Hapi for mercy, Ma'at for balance, and one more, Ketu for survival. Still here. The morning of Binti's departure comes cloaked in silence, not sadness, at least not openly, but the heavy hush of people pretending not to worry. She eats early: bread, onion, a bit of lentil paste. No one talks about where she's going or why. Nefer hands her a pouch. Inside, dried dates, a strip of linen, and one of Horam's so-called lucky stones. This one glows in the right light, he insists. That's just fish slime, Binti replies, but she tucks it into her satchel anyway. Satra arrives just as Binti ties the last knot on her shoulder bag. I wanted to walk with you, Satra says, or delay me. Same thing. They follow the dusty path north toward the checkpoint where volunteers report for reassignment. The air already smells of heat and animal. A caravan is forming, workers, scribes, and one wide-eyed ox. A clerk with a stylus checks names. You're young, he says, eyeing Binti. So was the flood, she answers. He doesn't laugh, but he writes her name down anyway. By midday, she's on the road. Again, only this time without Ketu, without family. Just her satchel and the stretch of sand ahead. They walk in near silence. It's not the kind of journey that encourages conversation. The guards up front mutter about sandstorms. One older woman behind Binti complains about the straps on her sandals. Someone coughs, someone else coughs louder. By sunset, they reach a temporary camp, little more than cloth shelters and a cooking fire. They're fed a mash of barley and leeks. It's warm, technically edible. That night, Binti lies on a mat too thin, under a sky too bright. Stars pierce the darkness like cold pins. She whispers, still here. The next morning, she's assigned to hauling. Not stones, too heavy, but bricks, clay ones, sun-dried and stubborn. The worksite is a platform near a half-finished granary. Supervisors shout. Laborers sweat. Everyone pretends the gods are watching, but deep down, they know the gods are probably napping. Binti lifts, carries stacks. Her shoulders ache by mid-morning. Her hands blister by noon. You're new, a voice says. She turns to see a girl, maybe 16, wiry and barefoot. Name's Heba. You stack crooked. Then don't lean on them. Heba grins. Fair. By the second day, Binti knows the rhythm. 5 bricks at a time. Don't run. Don't stumble. Drink when you can. Don't let the foreman see you sit. Heba shares everything. Water, gossip, shade. Her last job was cleaning linens at a minor temple. Too many beetles, too many opinions. By the 3rd day, a man collapses. Not dead. Not yet. But close enough to make people work quieter. That night, Binti writes a letter. Short, blunt, still alive, tired. Work is cruel, but Heba makes it less so. She gives it to a passing courier, a man with one sandal and a patient donkey. On the 5th day, a sandstorm hits. Not large, not deadly, but fierce enough to send dust into every crevice. They cover their faces, huddle behind stacks of bricks. Heba curses the wind in increasingly creative ways. When it passes, the supervisor demands they return to work immediately, because bricks don't care about weather. That night, Binti dreams of water. Deep, clean, impossible water. By the 7th day, she's caught the rhythm. Her body still hurts, but it no longer surprises her. She finds herself humming, small songs, pieces of chants, the kind Iseri sings when the lentils won't boil right. Heba hums along, different tunes, same feeling. Then a runner. He arrives at the camp, panting, holding a wrapped scroll. Message for Binti. Her name sounds strange from someone else's mouth. She unwraps it, Ketu's handwriting, less crooked, still rough. Heard from someone who heard from someone you joined a site. Figures. Bet you're already in charge. Watch the sun. Don't let them work you to dust. Still here. She presses the letter to her chest. Still here, she whispers, then goes back to stacking bricks, one at a time, with care. Because if you're going to be part of something, even unwillingly, you might as well build it right. Day 10, or maybe 11. Time starts to melt under the sun. The numbers lose their edges. Binti wakes up before the first shout. Her body knows the routine now. Rise, drink, carry, survive. She folds her mat, tucks the lucky stone back in her pouch, and steps outside into the blur of dust and dawn. Today, the bricks feel heavier. Not because they're the same miserable blocks as always, but because her muscles have begun to argue instead of obey. Her palms are raw. Her back sings a song of mutiny. Still, she lifts. Heba finds her mid-morning, arms already dusted and white. You slept like a corpse, she says. Flattering. No, really. We thought you were dead. I poked you with a spoon. Twice. Binti grins. The first one in hours. The day grows hotter and tempers follow suit. One worker throws a brick after a guard mutters something about pace. The guard dodges. The brick hits a cart. The cart breaks. Everyone pretends not to see. By midday, they're dragging more bricks from the bank. The piles never seem to shrink. Binti and Heba work side by side, moving in rhythm, saying nothing. Talking wastes breath. Then someone collapses. Again. The overseer doesn't stop the work. He waves a guard to drag the man away. That's the third this week. Do they all come back? Binti asks. Some, Heba replies. That night, the stew is thin. Water, garlic, and wishful thinking. Heba scrapes the bottom of the bowl with her fingers. One day, I'll eat real stew, with lamb and beans and enough salt to offend the gods. Careful, Binti says. That kind of dreaming gets you assigned to the temples. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad. Binti shakes her head. The gods don't want your stew. They both laugh. It helps. Briefly. The next day, letters arrive. A traveling merchant dumps a small pouch of rolled papyrus. Names are shouted, fingers raised. Binti, daughter of Nefer. She grabs it with dust-covered hands, unrolls it slowly. Still alive, boss broke his toe yelling at someone else. I laughed. Was punished. Worth it. Found figs, hoarded 3, thinking of home. Still here. She closes her eyes, clutches the letter to her chest. Heba peers over her shoulder. He sounds stubborn. He is. You too. By the end of the week, a rumor spreads. Inspectors are coming. High-ranking ones, temple-connected. That means one thing, cleaning. Everyone scrubs, the bricks, the paths, even the shade tents. Binti is ordered to help polish the record tablets. It's the first time she's held a stylus. Don't press too hard, the scribe warns. This is record-keeping, not warfare. She presses too hard, just once. The stylus cracks. Maybe I should stick to bricks, she mutters. Yes, the scribe agrees. Please do. When the inspectors arrive, everyone stands straighter. Their robes are spotless. Their sandals, ornamental. One smells like myrrh and expensive boredom. They walk the site in silence. Occasionally, one nods, another raises an eyebrow. The head scribe makes notes. They don't speak to the workers. They don't even look at most of them. Until they reach Binti. You, one says. Name, Binti. From where? Near the bend in the Nile, south of the date groves. He nods, as if that explains everything. You write? No. Pity. Then he moves on. Just like that. After they leave, the foreman relaxes. Sort of. The workers exhale as one. What was that about? Heba asks. I think I passed an invisible test, Binti replies. The next morning, she's reassigned. Not far. Just to the measuring tent. Carrying tablets, cleaning tools, watching the scribes pretend they invented math. It's less backbreaking, but not less exhausting. Heba misses her. Come back to the dust, she says one evening. It's in my shoes. I never left. They share half a roasted garlic bulb and a laugh that tastes better than the food. Binti writes a new letter to Ketu, still alive, changed posts. Now I count things, miss dust, miss noise, miss home, still here. She hands it off to the next passing courier, a man with no teeth and endless stories. That night, she dreams of figs, of her family, of the river bending around her village like an arm around a shoulder. Still here, still building, still hoping it matters. The days start blending. Counting bricks, carrying tablets, writing nothing, thinking too much. Binti no longer marks the days with a stick in the dirt. She measures time by the state of her sandals. When they split, it's probably been a week. When they crumble, 2. The measuring tent is quieter than the brick lines, less shouting, more muttering. The scribes never raise their voices. Their judgments are sharp but quiet, like knives wrapped in linen. Binti learns to watch with her ears, the way a stylus pauses mid-word, the rustle of a scroll being unrolled too slowly. She doesn't understand most of the symbols, but she understands the way knowledge sits like power in the air. One scribe, Setau, older than most and twice as tired, starts asking her questions. What do you see here? He points at a tablet. 2 sacks of barley, she guesses. And if there are 3 more? Then someone lied about their storage. He chuckles. You're quick, you're obvious. Later he tosses her a broken stylus. Practice on the clay shards, not the real tablets. She does. At night. Letters. Shapes. Her name. Ketu's. The gods. One after another until her fingers forget they were ever meant to carry bricks. In the fields, Heba still labors. They see each other during meals, sharing stew and sarcasm. Heba notices the ink stains on Binti's fingers. Scribe now? Not yet. Apprentice of carrying. You always liked heavier things. The next day, a boy collapses in the measuring tent, just drops. No warning, no cry. Binti helps roll him onto a mat. He's breathing, someone says. Barely, says another. Setau orders water, cloth, salt. Binti brings them fast. Too much sun, too little food, Setau mutters. This sight eats people. No one disagrees. That evening, Binti writes another letter. Work changed, still carrying, just smaller loads now, learning things, maybe too much, tired, still here. She gives it to a merchant heading south, pays with 2 dried dates. That night, a wind picks up, not a storm, just enough to whisper sand into every corner. She wakes with grit on her lips. The following week brings a surprise. Not good, not bad, just unexpected. A royal visit. Not the pharaoh himself, of course, just a cousin or a nephew. Someone important enough to matter and distant enough to be disposable. The sight prepares like it's the end of the world. Banners unfurled, workers scrubbed, bricks stacked, prettier than they'll ever be again. Binti is pulled into service. You carry the scrolls, Setau says. Don't drop them. Don't speak unless asked. Don't die. Fair enough. The royal cousin arrives on a litter carried by 4 very tired men. He wears gold. He radiates boredom. Impressive, he says once. Functional, Setau replies. The cousin squints at the workers, points vaguely at Binti. Who's that? Assistant. She looks thin. We all do. Later, Binti walks behind the cousin's litter, still holding the scroll. The sun bakes the air into soup. The guards around him don't sweat. Somehow. At the granary, the cousin inspects the bricks. These will hold longer than your memory, someone whispers, quietly enough not to be heard. After the visit, the sight relaxes again. Not fully, but enough. Setau hands Binti a full stylus. You've earned it. Don't waste it. What if I do? Then you'll learn faster. Heba hears the news at dinner. A scribe, huh? Next, you'll be building pyramids with your words. Only the small ones, for cats. They laugh. Then don't. That night, Binti dreams of ink, of scrolls with her name, of stars shaped like letters. Still here. 3 days after the royal visit, a clay tablet cracks in half during midday tally. Not dramatic, just a small snap, like a twig underfoot. But Setao stares at it as if it just insulted his ancestors. Too dry, he mutters, too rushed. He hands Binti the pieces. Rewrite it. She blinks. You mean copy it? I mean rewrite it. Same numbers, same symbols, neater. The stylus feels heavier than usual, the clay colder. But her hands don't shake, not much. By sunset, she finishes. Setao inspects the copy, nods once, then doesn't say anything for the rest of the evening. That night, Heba finds her by the fire, nose smudged with dust and pride. So, Heba says, you're officially one of them. Not yet. Still more dust than ink. Still, most people here die with less. They share a stolen onion and call it a feast. The next morning brings news from the southern fields. A sickness, maybe. Workers sent back early. Whispers spread faster than truth ever could. Cursed sight, someone says. Bad air, says another. Too many bodies, not enough rest, adds a third. Binti asks Setao about it. He shrugs. Happens every season. People push too hard, then break. That afternoon, she writes home. Still here, moved from bricks to scrolls, less lifting, more thinking. Heard about sick camps, avoiding them, hope you are too. Miss figs, miss noise. Still here. No messenger that day. She ties the scroll shut and keeps it in her satchel, just in case. Later, during her break, she sits near the edge of camp, watching ants swarm a broken piece of date, organizing chaos. A familiar voice cuts the silence. Still watching the ground, I see. She turns. K2. Dusty, thin, smiling like a man who wrestled the sun and survived. Barely. She jumps up, hits him on the shoulder, then again, then hugs him like the Nile might vanish tomorrow. You're late, she says. You're taller. Liar. Truthbender. They sit under the shade of a woven tarp, trading everything. He tells her about hauling stone, about a supervisor who smelled like fish and violence, about a friend who disappeared one night and never came back. She tells him about the stylus, the scrolls, the cracked tablet, the onion. He laughs, then doesn't. You okay? She asks. Getting there. They sit a while in silence. I thought you might not come back, she finally says. I thought you'd be gone when I did. Neither were wrong. That night, Heba joins them. She brings a boiled egg and a piece of roasted garlic. A celebration, she declares. For what? Ketu asks. For surviving. For finding each other. For food that doesn't taste like betrayal. They eat slowly, like the moment might end if they chew too fast. Later, Binti unwraps the letter she hadn't sent, hands it to Ketu. Still want to send it? He asks. No, I'll write a new one. He nods. Make it a good one. That night, under stars and dust, she does. Still here. Ketu is too. Writing now, with ink, with hope, with more than survival. Still here. She rolls the scroll and places it gently beside her mat. Tomorrow, someone will carry it south. But tonight, it belongs to the quiet, to the crickets, to the ones who made it through another day in Egypt. The morning after Ketu's return, the air feels different, not cooler, just possible, like the sky remembered it could be kind. For once, Binti wakes before the sun. She stares at the rolled letter beside her mat, still tied with care, still waiting for a messenger who might never come. Ketu sleeps nearby, sprawled like a cat who forgot it's not royalty. Heba snores faintly from the corner. The world is briefly, impossibly quiet. Work resumes, of course it does. No one gets a day off for hope. K2 rejoins the labor crews, this time closer to the grain silos. Less hauling, more lifting, a slight promotion, which in Egypt means he might get to keep both knees intact. Binti returns to the measuring tent. Setao hands her a new tablet. You copy. I check. We pretend this matters. She copies. He checks. It matters. At midday, a shadow falls across the scrolls, not from the sun, a messenger. Letter, he says, for Binti. She takes it with both hands, unrolls it slowly. Nefer's handwriting, strong, a little rushed. Fields planted, roof fixed. Horam found a beetle and named it General Mud. Aseri says hello, stay sharp. And at the bottom, still here. She reads it twice, then passes it to Ketu that night. He reads it aloud for Heba. General Mud, Heba laughs, that's going in my dreams. They eat lentils and pretend it tastes like victory. Days pass, the rhythm returns. Dust, sun, work, ink, then trouble. A theft. 2 sacks of barley, gone. From the storehouse. Whispers run like rats. A worker did it. A scribe covered it. The gods are angry. Setao calls Binti aside. Someone changed the tally. Sloppy work, not yours. But now everyone's under suspicion. She frowns. Why tell me? Because I might need someone who remembers things. That evening, she rewrites the entire barley log from memory. Dates, numbers, discrepancies. Setao reads it, whistles low. You've got the eyes of Thoth. Just tired. The next day, guards arrive. They question 10 people. Detain 2. One of them, a boy who once shared his water skin with Binti, disappears by nightfall. Did he do it? Heba asks. Does it matter? Binti replies. The mood shifts. Work slows, smiles vanish, Setao becomes quieter, Ketu more guarded. Heba carries her tools like weapons. Still, life continues. Egypt always demands motion. A week later, a minor flood washes through the southern path. 2 tents swept away. A cart overturned, one guard covered in mud and shame. Binti helps rescue the scrolls. Ink blurs, symbols vanish. That one was about taxes, Setao sighs. Let it drown. That night, they dry everything by firelight. Ketu cooks a stew. Heba adds salt she claims is magical. Because I found it. That's the magic. They eat, laugh, then sleep huddled close. In the dark, Binti whispers, still here. Ketu answers, still tired. Heba mutters, still hungry. The wind rises, carries their words into the night. In ancient Egypt, survival is a chant you repeat until it becomes true. Rain, a miracle, a curse, both probably. It begins just before dawn, a patter on the tent roof, soft as a whisper, then harder, louder, like the sky remembered how to cry and decided not to stop. Binti wakes to chaos, workers shouting, tarps sagging, scrolls wrapped in linen and tucked under arms. Water sneaks into every corner. By midday, the measuring tent is half flooded. The brick piles are slush. The clay paths are rivers. Setao growls from beneath his soaked head wrap. Rain. Now, of all the cursed timings. I thought it never rained, Binti says. It never does, until it does. Ketu slogs through the mud with a half-collapsed crate. Heba dances in the puddles like a goddess of inconvenience. This is the most joy I've had in months, she declares. You're soaked. So, you'll catch something. Hope. Maybe. The site shuts down for the day. No work, just repair, patch, protect. In the afternoon, a scribe from another camp arrives, his robe splattered to the knees. Mudslide up north, he says. They lost 3 tents, 1 scribe. Gone. Silence spreads like spilled ink. That night, they sit close around the fire. Wet, cold, but together. Ketu roasts a sweet root they dug up by accident. Tastes like hope, Heba says. Or dirt. Same difference. Binti writes by firelight. Still here. Rain today. Site nearly floated to Nubia. Ketu roasted a miracle. Heba is now a weather spirit. Ink smudged. Still here. The letter goes out with a caravan driver who swears by camels and curses alike. The next morning, the damage becomes clearer. Half the grain store is soaked, tools rusting, 2 tents missing. one foreman limping from a heroic attempt to save a jug of pickles. Satao assigns recovery tasks. Find what's salvageable, burn what's not, and someone help me dry this scroll before it turns into soup. Binti helps inventory the grain. Spoiled, soaked, salvageable. She develops a scale for mold. 5 stages. Stage 4 smells like defeat. Stage 5 like an offering rejected by every god. At lunch, Heba presents her with a small clump of dry barley. For your scroll collection. So thoughtful. I expect payment in sarcasm. They eat mashed beans and discuss mythical creatures. Binti invents one. The scroll beetle carries messages, eats lies. Sounds like you, Heba says. That night, a new face arrives at the camp. A boy, younger than Binti, dust-covered, silent. Runaway? Ketu whispers. Messenger, maybe. The boy delivers a letter to Setao, then waits, quiet, watching. Setao opens the scroll, reads, doesn't speak for a long time. Finally, he calls Binti. You've got another transfer, he says. Again? This one's special. Temple wants a record keeper, young, sharp, with decent memory and no ties to trouble. She blinks. That's oddly specific. I may have exaggerated your virtues. Do I get to say no? Technically, but I wouldn't. That night, she tells Heba and Ketu, you're leaving? Moving. Not far. You better write. Only in insulting poems. Perfect. They share roasted lentils and a song Ketu remembers from home. Off-key. Beautiful. Later, Binti rolls her mat and packs her things, her satchel, her stylus, the lucky stone, and the scroll beetle drawing. She writes one more letter, still here, but changing. New post, maybe a real roof, maybe walls. Not sure how to feel. Ketu and Heba are alive. That's enough. Still here. At dawn, she walks out of camp with the boy messenger. No goodbyes, just nods. The rain has stopped, but the sky still remembers, and so does she. Morning light spills through the temple window like a promise, soft but insistent. Binti wakes, lying on a thin mat with a crisp scroll beside her, evidence that her world has changed, but not entirely. She tugs it close before rising. The courtyard is cool stone, the air hushed, and she breathes slightly easier. Her first task, dictation practice. In the dictation room, she meets a young scribe in training named Mani, whose accent rolls like the Nile south of the cataracts. He has a scribal tablet balanced on his knee and sheepish excitement in his eyes. Go, Hinanu whispers, listen and write. Mani begins. The well of Ra is clear, the barley bright. The moon fastens our days to the gods. Binti captures it all, every word, every humble metaphor dressed as prophecy. He glances at her, relieved. That's it? That's it, she assures him, voice steady. He smiles. You listen. She nods. It sounds like praise. The rest of the day passes in quiet diligence, organizing scrolls, cross-referencing names, catching errors, even Netjeru misses. Henanu's approval is measured but visible, an occasional nod, a softer tone when she corrects her. At dusk, Binti wraps the day's work and slips out into the courtyard. There, beneath a fig tree, sits Heba and Ketu, both turned unexpectedly small under the high temple walls. Heba hasn't shaved her head yet, but she's different, stoic, determined. Ketu's laugh still warms like embers. He holds a jug of lentil soup. Temple broth, he says. They let me test it. Binti tastes. It's thin, but rich enough in memories. They sit together. No words needed. Just soup. Just presence. That night, Binti writes once more. Still here. Copying words less heavy than bricks, but they weigh on my mind. Ketu and Heba are proof. Temple walls are shelter, but they aren't home. Still here. She folds the scroll exactly, tucks it into her pouch beside the lucky stone and the scroll beetle drawing, all reminders of who she was and who she is. Before sleep, she steps outside into the silent courtyard. Moonlight glimmers off the stone. She whispers the names, Ra, Happy, Ma'at. Then softly, Ketu, Heba, Home. Still here, still building, still writing, still holding on. Danyan, De Lavan Ban Banda Kungkap, Hongqing Sua, Hongtembut. The temple holds its secrets in silence, but Binti is learning to listen between the echoes. Each day begins with sweeping, not for cleanliness, though that's the excuse, but for reverence. Dust, after all, is just history waiting to settle. Heninu assigns her a new task, transcribing ceremonial poems. These aren't for taxes, she warns. These are for gods. Make them beautiful. Binti tries. The ink must flow like prayer, the margins exact, the rhythm within the lines precise, like a heart that refuses to forget how to beat. The first poem is to Ra, sun, heat, order. It reads like someone tried to bribe fire. The second is for Bastet, protection, cats, comfort. The metaphors purr, the third is unfinished. A half scroll, the last line's lost to decay. Binti hesitates. Finish it, Henanu says. You want me to write the ending? I want you to make it whole. That's different. So she does, one careful line at a time. She writes of stars as scales, of night as mercy, of gods who remember your name even when you forget it. Henanu reads it, says nothing, then hands her another scroll. It means approval. That night, Binti writes home. Still here, writing for gods now, less numbers, more metaphors, missing the simplicity of bricks, missing the weight of other voices, still here. She leaves it at the temple gate. A boy picks it up, doesn't ask questions, just runs. A few days later, a celebration. The temple hosts a feast, not for the workers, not really, for the gods, officially. But food spills to the edges and Binti is allowed to watch. Roasted duck, figs, honeyed bread, things that feel like stories, not meals. She sits beside Nechiru, who eats like he's forgotten his own teeth situation. Eat more, he grumbles. You copy better with sugar in your blood. That's not in the scrolls. It should be. Henenu brings her a cup of date wine. Doesn't smile, but her nod is practically affection. After the meal, a procession, music, incense, priests in gold. Binti watches, hands folded, pretending not to count the cost of the fabrics. One girl faints from the heat. No one panics. She's carried off gently, returned an hour later with a fig in her mouth and a dreamy expression. Later, under the moon, Binti walks the temple garden, small, walled, smelling of lotus and dust. She whispers to the plants, still here. A leaf rustles. Approval, maybe. The next morning, Satao appears. You're alive, Binti says. Barely. I was sent for records. They said you're useful now. I'm flattered. You should be. He hands her a tablet. Field data. I want your notes. I want them better than mine. She grins. Then you'll get them. They sit side by side for an hour, scribbling in companionable irritation. Satao doesn't compliment her work, but he leaves the stylus behind when he goes. The temple cat walks across it 5 minutes later, declares it claimed. That afternoon, a new letter arrives from Kedu. Still alive. Heba joined a crew near the southern basin, says it's too flat, misses your sarcasm. I miss hearing you pretend not to care. Hope you're writing better than the gods. Still here. She folds the letter and places it under her mat. That night, she writes back, still here. Gardens now. Gods and metaphors. Miss Brickdust, Miss Noise, Miss Home. Still here. The moon is high, the temple hums with sleep. Binti traces her name into the dirt outside her door, just once, then wipes it away. Still here. Temple days stretch like shadow under high sun. Binti finds herself not just working, but waiting for the next scroll, for the next error to correct, for the next messenger to bring word from somewhere less silent. Henenu notices. Of course she does. You're restless, she says. I'm attentive. You're both. That's rare. Dangerous. Heninu hands her a sealed scroll. Translate this, not word for word, sense for sense. Another hymn? Worse, a foreign trader's record. The script is awkward, not Egyptian, not elegant. It rambles about shipments and ivory and something called a talking monkey that probably wasn't literal. Binti transcribes, reshapes, clarifies, laughs once. You're amused, Henanu notes. He claims he sold wind. We've all sold worse. By evening, she has the full translation. It makes very little sense, which means she did it right. The next day, a visiting priest arrives. Grand robes, empty hands. We need an assistant scribe for a temple visit to the western necropolis, he declares. Henanu, choose wisely. Henanu points. Binti. Just like that, she's assigned. She leaves at dawn with 2 priests, 1 nervous guard, and a cart filled with ceremonial items. The necropolis is dust, stone, and memory. They walk past tombs old enough to forget their names. Take notes, the older priest says, of everything. She does. Of chants spoken, of items offered, of a cat that follows them for 6 tombs and then vanishes. At one tomb, a slab won't lift. It's a sign, whispers the young priest. It's stone, Binti mutters. They use a lever. Inside, murals, faded, splintered. A falcon missing its beak. A sun god with 3 arms. Interesting interpretations, the old priest murmurs. They perform rites. She records, carefully, respectfully. By nightfall, they camp near the edge of the burial field. The guard snores. The priests pray. Binti writes, still here, among tombs, recording rites. Saw a falcon with 3 arms. Hope that was paint, not prophecy. Still here. She tucks the letter into her satchel. We'll send it later. The stars above are sharp, the kind of sky that watches. Binti whispers names she remembers. Gods, people, herself. The next day, they return. Henenu meets her at the gate. You didn't die. I tried not to. Good. We need someone to finish copying the flood records. Why me? Because you're already haunted, and I might as well use it. The flood records are long, tedious, precise, but halfway through, Binti finds a mistake, a duplicated month, a date out of place. She brings it to Netjeru. This is wrong. He squints. It's always been that way. Then it's always been wrong. He stares, then laughs. Fix it if you dare. She dares, quietly, carefully. Henenu approves with a single word, finally. Later, Binti walks the garden again. The moon is lower, the flowers smell like endings. She sees something carved faintly into a stone bench. Her own handwriting, still here. Someone's added beneath it, for now. She smiles, whispers, for longer, then goes inside. Tomorrow she'll rewrite prophecy. Tonight she's just ink and breath. Still here. The prophecy scrolls arrive wrapped in cloth and warning. Henenu sets them on the low table like one might place a sleeping cobra. These, she says, are delicate. Not because of age, because of implication. Binti nods, which is the safe response to anything labeled prophecy. There are 3 scrolls, one faded, one torn, one untouched but ominously titled, Concerning the Silence of Rivers. Henenu hands her the first. Copy, then summarize, then forget. The first scroll is more riddle than record. It speaks of fish that vanish before famine, of skies that weep red dust, of a voice that will rise from the southern reeds. Symbolic, Henenu says, or very dramatic. Both. The second scroll is harder. The ink has faded. The papyrus flakes. Binti reads it slowly, lips moving. It mentions a girl, a watcher, one who writes the end before it begins. She stops. You see yourself in it? Henenu asks without looking. No, I see someone I'd rather not be. Then you understand it. The third scroll waits. She opens it. Clean, unread, a gift or a trap. It's not long. A single passage. When the river forgets its name and ink dries mid-word, look to the one who holds stories but not power. She will speak, though none listen. She will write, though none remember. Binti copies it, carefully, then writes a note below. Is it warning or hope? Henanu reads the note, doesn't answer. Instead, she gives her a new task, organizing the archive index. We're running out of space and patience. The archive is a labyrinth of scrolls, slabs, tablets, and questionable bundles. Neteru helps. By help, I mean he naps while you work, Henanu clarifies. I'm a supervisor, Neteru replies from his mat. Binti sorts by subject, then subsubject, then whim. There's no consistent method, only tradition wrapped in confusion. She finds a scroll about bread taxation hidden between two on astronomy. Symbolic, she mutters. After 3 days, the system starts to make sense, or she starts to accept that it never will. That night, she dreams of rivers flowing backward, of letters floating in the current, of a cat reading a scroll aloud. She wakes with ink on her fingers. A letter arrives the next day from Ketu. Q. Still alive. Heba's crew found pottery shards older than her temper. I bruised my elbow climbing a date tree. Worth it. Are you a prophet now? If yes, don't predict sandstorms. We have enough. Still here. She laughs, then writes back, still here. Sorting scrolls, reading futures I didn't ask for, missing voices louder than mine. Not a prophet, not yet. Still here. Henanu starts giving her more sensitive work. Scrolls marked with red strings. Topics whispered, not spoken. One scroll contains a birth record for a royal child, then another entry, scribbled faintly, erased. Binti copies it exactly, then writes a footnote, record incomplete. Clever, Henanu says, but safe. Would you prefer bold? No, but the gods might. She adds another line, history waits beneath silence. Henanu reads it, nods, says nothing. That evening a storm gathers. Not sand, not rain, just wind, enough to make doors creak and scrolls shiver. Binti stays late, organizing, writing. The temple cat curls around her feet. She whispers, still here, still writing, still watching. The wind answers with a sigh. Somewhere deep in the archive, a scroll falls. Binti walks over, picks it up. It's blank. Typical, she mutters. She rolls it, places it with the others. History waits, and Binti is still here. The blank scroll haunts her. It sits at the edge of her desk, always in sight, always empty. Henanu never mentions it, neither does Netjeru, but Binti swears the cat gives it long, judgmental stares. Days pass. She copies more scrolls, flood patterns, trade disputes, temple offerings tallied down to the last fig. Yet she keeps glancing at the blank one, wondering. It's not cursed, Netjeru says one afternoon. Didn't ask, didn't need to. Henanu eventually speaks. It's a placeholder for something that hasn't happened. Then why store it with the sacreds? Because sometimes nothing speaks louder than anything. Cryptic, as usual. That night, Binti walks the temple roof, wind in her hair, stars in full opinion. She thinks of the scroll, of things left unsaid, of what should be written and what must never be. The next morning, a messenger arrives. Letter from the south, he says, dust-covered, smiling. She takes it, recognizes the careful script. Ketu, still alive. Heba made stew, regretted it immediately. I climbed another tree, didn't fall this time. Found a beetle with gold on its back. Named it Binti. Don't be offended. Still here. She reads it twice, smiles, then writes back. Still here, still surrounded by scrolls. One is blank, not sure what it wants. Maybe it's mine, maybe it's ours. Still here. Henanu finds her staring at the scroll that afternoon. Write something, she says. It's not time. It never is. That's why we write anyway. That evening, she finally unrolls it, dips her stylus, writes one line. This is not a prophecy, this is a witness. Then she stops. A few days later, a new scribe arrives from Thebes, young, arrogant, all robes and no dust. He looks at Binti's work and scoffs. A woman's handwriting, delicate. She doesn't reply, just continues copying a scroll about divine punishment. Henanu overhears, calls the scribe aside. This woman rewrote 5 flood records without error, translated 4 foreign scrolls. She sees mistakes before they exist. Speak again and I'll assign you to the tax tables. He doesn't scoff after that. Netjeru nods. You've been temple forged. What does that mean? You're part of the stone now, can't be shaken. That night, she adds another line to the scroll. Stone holds memory. Ink remembers the tremor. More messengers come and go, more letters. Ketu again, still here. Heba broke a pickaxe, claimed it insulted her ancestors. I believe her. We miss your noise. Still here. She writes, still here. The scroll listens. It might become something, not sure what yet. Still here. Henenu reads the growing lines. It's becoming, she says simply. Binti adds more. Stories, names, things no record ever asked for but history deserves. Like the boy who whispered to bricks, the woman who sang while measuring grain, the guard who hid a kitten in his cloak, not important by scroll standards, but necessary. One day, Henanu hands her a wax tablet. We've been invited to Karnak. Consultation. I'm going? They want the best copyist. You qualify. Karnak is 3 days by river, grand, loud, full of opinions wrapped in ceremony. Binti steps off the boat and immediately misses her quiet bench. They stay in a guest house, sleep on mats softer than clouds. The head scribe is old, stern, unimpressed. You're the girl? The woman, Henanu corrects. They spend the next day reviewing records, comparing rights, debating margins. Binti holds her own, corrects a misdated eclipse, suggests a revision to a grain measure standard, doesn't flinch when asked to read aloud. By evening, the Karnak scribe nods once. Competent. That's high praise, Henenu whispers. They return to the temple with new scrolls and older smiles. Binti walks the garden that night, adds another line to the scroll. Still here, even in other places, still remembering, still writing. The blank scroll is no longer blank, it's becoming a map of time, of voice, of still being here. The return from Karnak is quieter than expected. Henenu resumes her routine like nothing happened. But Binti notices she reads scrolls more slowly now, pauses longer between sentences. Something change in Karnak? Binti asks. No. That's the problem. They don't speak of it again. Instead, they work. Days blur. The blank scroll, no longer blank, is now called the quiet record, unofficially. Netjeru nods whenever he passes it, like it's become a friend. Binti keeps writing in it. Not daily, but often. Still here. Another morning, another number counted wrong, another footnote corrected. Or, still here, Henanu sneezed during ritual and blamed Thoth. Or, still here, the cat knocked over an ink jar again. It's not poetry, it's not prophecy, but it feels like truth. One afternoon, a scroll arrives from the capital. Henanu reads it, sighs. They're requesting a temple historian. For what? To explain the old records, the new ones, the ones they burned and wish hadn't. She folds the scroll. They want someone who knows what wasn't written. Binti doesn't ask who they mean. 3 days later, she's on another boat. The capital rises like a memory, grand avenues, statues taller than gods, people who speak fast and mean less. She's shown into a room lined with gold leaf shelves. A scribe in red gestures to a table. Sit, read, tell us what you see. She does. The first scroll is about land grants, old and wrong. This name was erased, you can tell from the stroke depth. Good. Next. The second, a census. These numbers are inflated. Look here, 2 families listed twice under different house gods. They nod, whisper, continue. By sunset, Binti has reviewed 12 documents, corrected 9, annotated 3. Impressive, one scholar says. Necessary, Binti replies. They offer her a position. Temple archivist, royal commission, she thanks them. Doesn't answer. That night she writes, still here, but further from dust. Not sure if I want to stay clean. Still thinking, still missing. She sends the letter with a baker's boy who delivers more gossip than bread. Back at her temple 3 days later, Henanu raises an eyebrow. Did you accept? No. Why? They read scrolls, but not people. Henanu smiles, for once fully. Then you're ready. For what? To teach. The next morning, Binti finds 2 apprentices at her desk, one scared, one smug. They're yours, Henanu says, break them gently. She tries. The scared one listens. The smug one argues, but both learn. She teaches margins first, then patience, then listening. At night, she updates the quiet record. Still here, now with echoes. Teaching is louder than writing. One apprentice, Tamit, asks about the scroll. It's not official, is it? No. Then why keep it? Because it remembers things we forget on purpose. They nod. Don't ask again. Letters keep coming. From Ketu. Still here. Heba insulted a priest by accident. He blessed her anyway. We harvested early. Dusty but full. Miss your stubbornness. Still here. She replies, still here, now responsible for new scribes. Miss the days when only clay made mistakes. Still writing, still laughing, still here. That evening, a wind sweeps through the archive. A scroll falls, the quiet record. She picks it up, adds still here, even when the winds forget our names. Still we remain. Henanu sees it later. Doesn't comment. Just places a fresh scroll beside it, blank, waiting. The second blank scroll sits beside the first like a quiet question. Binti doesn't touch it at first, just lets it exist. Present, potential. Henanu offers no instruction, only a glance as if to say, you'll know when. In the meantime, temple life deepens, the apprentices grow. Tamit now copies without smudges. The smug one, Aset, learns the art of revision. Mistakes make better scribes, Binti tells them. Do they make better teachers? Aset asks. Ask me in 5 years. She begins logging rituals again. A dry season blessing, a funerary chant for an unknown elder, a new moon invocation. Somewhere in the chants she hears her own rhythm. Still here, the letters continue. Ketu writes, still here. Heba got a small shrine job. She pretends she hates it. She doesn't. We talk about you often. Not too fondly, just often. Still here, she laughs. Writes back. Still here. Apprentices ask too many questions. Or maybe I've forgotten how many I asked once. Still writing, still wondering. Then one evening, the sky changes. Clouds roll thick and fast. The air grows heavy with anticipation. Not rain, not storm, just a hush. Henanu walks the archive like she's counting ghosts. We need to secure the text, she says, all of them. No questions asked, just action. They wrap scrolls, tie bundles, move slabs to higher ground. Necheru mutters about bad omens. It's just wind, Binti offers. Winds don't rattle walls unless they're warning. By nightfall, a message arrives. Famine in the north, drought, a failed harvest. We'll be called on soon, Henanu says, and they are. 2 days later, a royal envoy arrives, wants records, charts, projections. Binti is summoned. She presents the flood tables, the granary reports, the seasonal rituals. We need more than numbers, the envoy says. We need hope. She doesn't say, scrolls don't feed mouths. Instead, she offers the quiet record. This is unofficial, but it's true. He reads a few lines, blinks. Who wrote this? Many hands. Mine, mostly. He nods, takes a copy. It might never reach the court, but it might. That night, she touches the second blank scroll, writes, still here, even when fields fail, even when gods are silent, still we write, still we witness. The apprentices watch. That's not history, Aset says. It will be. Tammet adds a line, still here, learning to see beyond ink. Henanu finds it the next day, leaves a jar of figs beside the scroll. No comment, just sweetness. Later, a traveling scribe arrives, carries a bundle of damaged scrolls from a southern temple. We lost our roof, he explains, saved what we could. Binti offers help. They spend days salvaging, drying, recopying. One scroll contains a hymn she's never seen, a praise to survivors, the ones who woke up, who remembered, who stood still when others ran. She copies it into the second scroll, still here and worthy of mention. The temple grows quieter, not empty, just reflective. Henanu begins transferring tasks, more to Binti, more to the apprentices. One evening she says, I'm going to Thebes to visit family. Binti nods. For how long? Long enough. She leaves the next morning. No ceremony, just a wave. Neteru mutters, she'll return when the figs bloom or when we break something. Binti becomes de facto head of scrolls. It feels possible. She writes, still here, and now responsible. Strange how quiet authority feels. Aset adds, still here, but louder about it. Tammet draws a small sun beside the line. Binti doesn't stop them, she encourages it. The scroll expands. Not official, but necessary. A map of memory, a ledger of breath. Still here, and still growing. The temple breathes without Henanu, but differently. Binti notices it in the way scrolls shift slightly without command, in how the apprentices speak more freely, how the ink flows a touch looser as if freed from its keeper. She adjusts, quietly. Tammet asks more questions. Aset challenges more ideas. Neteru naps with greater conviction. She trusted you, he mutters one afternoon, eyes closed. Don't betray it by becoming her. Binti smiles, doesn't respond. She writes, still here. The temple's rhythm changed, but the heart remains. The quiet record grows, the second scroll now a thread of voices. Tammet, Aset, even visitors sometimes add a line, sometimes silly, sometimes sharp. One traveler scribes, still here, though not for long and grateful. Binti lets it stay, then return. A letter from Henanu, short, precise. Family well, figs bloomed early, will return soon, trust yourself. It feels like a blessing disguised as logistics. Around the same time, a call arrives from the capital. They want a report on temple literacy. Binti prepares it. Charts, figures, anecdotes. A courier comes to collect it, a boy with sharp eyes and bare feet. Before he leaves, he lingers near the scroll. Can I write something? Tammet hesitates. Binti nods. The boy writes, still here, never thought I'd hold a stylus. They let the ink dry, no edits. Next morning, a scroll arrives from Heba. Still here. The shrine work is fine, but the priest smells like onions and regret. I miss kicking sand at your sandals. Hope you're still scribbling nonsense. Binti grins, writes back, still here. Less nonsense, more scribes, but occasionally nonsense sneaks in. She reads parts of Heba's letter aloud to the apprentices. Tammet blushes at the line about onions. Aset pretends not to laugh. Days pass. A sandstorm rolls in one evening. Fast, unforgiving. They lock the archive, tie down doors, seal the windows. Binti sleeps beside the quiet record that night, just in case. In the morning, dust coats everything, but nothing's lost. They sweep, they catalog the wind's attempt at chaos. They write, still here, still dusty, still stubborn. Aset, laughing, adds, the wind writes louder than we do, but less clearly. Weeks go by, then months. Henanu returns, looks older, or maybe just finished with something. She surveys the archive, nods once. You didn't let it fall apart. I tried, Neteru resisted. Good, he's too old to bury. They laugh. The temple breathes easier. Henanu reads the second scroll. From start to latest line, closes it, says nothing. Then sets a small lotus blossom on it. Approval. Gentle. permanent. The next morning, she asks Binti to speak at the season's opening ritual. Not chant, just words. Yours. Binti panics for a moment, then writes. On the day, she stands before the gathered scribes, the priests, the guards, the cat, and says, "We are still here because we write, because we remember, because we listen to ink and wind and silence, and because we leave space for others to do the same." They listen, then they clap. Even Netjeru once. The ritual proceeds. Offerings, music, more incense than necessary. Binti writes after, still here and heard, strange and good. Later, Ketu's letter arrives. Still here. Heba scolded a noble. The noble apologized. I think she's invincible now. We built a shelter from broken pots. You'd love it. Still here. She reads it aloud during lunch. Tamet wants to visit. Aset pretends to hate the idea. Netjeru offers to supervise from a distance of 300 cubits. That night, Binti stands on the temple roof again, the stars familiar, the breeze mild. She writes one more line, still here, because someone was before me and someone will be after. Still writing, still hoping. The second scroll nears its end. Another blank one waits, just in case. Still here. The final scroll begins without ceremony. No trumpet, no divine sign. Just Binti, sitting at her desk, a reed stylus in hand, and a blank sheet that doesn't yet know it will be an ending. She stares at it for a long time, then writes, still here, one more time. The temple is calm, the kind of quiet that comes after a storm has passed, but before people admit it's safe. Henanu sorts the morning ledgers. Tamet hums while brushing ink dust off a scroll. Aset copies faster than she speaks, which is saying something. Netjeru dozes in a patch of sunlight, occasionally snorts. Life, but softened. Midday brings a surprise, a visitor from the royal court. The Queen's steward, Henanu whispers. That's not a title we hear lightly. The steward requests a meeting. With Binti, Henanu stiffens, then nods. Binti is led to the formal chamber. It smells like incense and politics. You wrote the quiet records, the steward begins. I wrote in them, alongside others. He opens a scroll, one of hers. The Queen read this line aloud, still here, because someone was before me and someone will be after. Binti stays still. She cried. Binti blinks. She did? We want your permission to copy these. Circulate them, not as history, as hope. She breathes. Yes, but make sure it's known they were never mine alone. The steward bows. Of course. After he leaves, she sits by the garden. The cat finds her, curls in her lap, approves. Tamet joins her. Did they give you gold? No, something heavier. Aset sits nearby, pretends to ignore them, then says, you're going to be remembered. Binti shrugs. So are you, just differently, she writes. Still here, but now heard. Still many, still more. That night, Henanu speaks. It's time. For what? For you to take over, fully. Binti freezes. You're leaving again? Henanu smiles. Not leaving, but stepping back. The temple needs someone who knows how to remember and how to let others speak. You're sure? I was sure the day you arrived. I just waited for you to catch up. The next morning, Binti stands before the scribes, officially this time. She speaks simply. Write what matters. Remember what was forgotten. Listen to silence and always leave room for someone else to say, still here. Applause is quiet, the best kind. The scroll is almost full now. Letters still come. Ketu writes, still here. Heba wants to come visit. She says she misses correcting you. We both do. You better have room in your temple for loud memories. Still here. She replies, still here. Always space, even if we have to build it ourselves. The temple expands, not in stone, but in breath. New apprentices arrive, some scared, some smug. Binti teaches, guides, listens. sometimes adds a line to the scroll, sometimes watches others do it. Tamit writes, still here, still learning, still unsure. A said, still here, louder than ever, deal with it. Still here for naps and nonsense. Still here because of all of you. And finally, one quiet night under a moon more silver than shadow, Binti writes, still here, but ready to stop writing, not because the story ends, but because it continues elsewhere, in other hands, other scrolls, other voices. Still here, still remembered, still always. She rolls the scroll, ties it gently, places it on the shelf, and leaves the next blank one on the desk. Waiting, still here. And just like that, we've reached the final line of the scroll, the last grain of sand in tonight's hourglass. But before you wander off into the quiet corners of your dreams or scroll over to watch someone wrestle a crocodile for clout, take a breath and tell me, what stayed with you? Was it Binti's stubborn ink? The way silence sometimes says the most? Or maybe just that temple cat with too much attitude? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your voice, your memory, you're still here, matters just as much. I read them all, even the weird ones, especially the weird ones. And hey, if you've made it this far, maybe you're one of us now. So go ahead and subscribe. Light the torch so you don't miss the next story when night falls again. Thanks for walking this quiet path with me, for listening, for remembering. We'll meet again, same channel, different century. Until then, dim the lights, keep a scroll nearby, and never stop writing your own history. Good night, and see you in the next story.